All right, all right. Welcome to the Building Doctor Show. I'm your host, Jens Johansson. Glad to see you here to learn more about your buildings. Today, in the Halloween theme, we're talking about the horrifying secrets or the spooky things and the scary things we find underneath your cladding and why you need an inspection. So, we prepared the 18 spookiest case studies we've seen lately. So, get ready for checking out what seems to look fine. And then when you pull off the cladding, you see underneath it and you say, whoa, this bad. That is bad. So if you're joining us on the podcast today, thanks for listening, but you're missing out on this slide content. We cover a lot of good pictures and things. So if you want that full experience, visit our website, j2consultants.com, and register for the Building Doctor Show, attend live via Zoom, and submit your questions. We're also happy to announce that the Building Doctor Show is live on YouTube as well, and you can put your chat questions and comments in the chat there, and we'll get those answered for you. So I hope those of you attending have lots of good questions today because they help steer the conversation as well as give everyone value. If you have a more specific question or if you want to see if we can help you in your specific need, stay tuned for a link to schedule a free one-on-one call with me, and we will take it from there. Our producer Carolyn's going to be monitoring the chat, and I'll go through the Q&A panel at the end of the show. We will have a fun raffle giveaway to help you inspect your buildings with, so stick around for that. And remember, this show is for educational purposes only. No financial, legal, or engineering advice is being handed out today. So let's jump in to the show here. And that was not what I wanted. There we go. So today's agenda. We're in the past couple of weeks. Hold on just a second. Do we need anything? No, there was a technical thing there. So in the past couple of weeks, we've been speaking about reserve studies and inspections, and it's kind of knowledge is the inspection, and reserve study is, do I have the money to do what I need to do? And so that's a couple of different ways to think about it. Do I have any knowledge of what's really going on with my building? And so I kind of step back and look at a couple of life events or personal things and understand how this is happening. And lately, I'm getting an uptick of calls from contractors. The economy might be slowing down a little bit, and so I'm getting more than the usual, advertising is normal, but now I'm starting to get some more passionate calls about, hey, we've got some time. Do you need your roof replaced? We'll even offer you a free roof assessment as a part of this. And so if I don't understand what's going on with my roof, I don't necessarily know that I need to replace it, and I don't know that I should be replacing it. But what I do know is I'm skeptical of somebody who sells roofs to be doing the assessment and saying you need a new roof. So it's like, how do I get a second opinion on that? And one of those big things is to understand your baseline of your building. And so let's jump over to one of my hobbies is off-road four-wheel driving. And so when I buy a new used truck, I immediately go through all the fluids. I want to understand, does the oil or does transmission fluid have metal shavings in it? Is it leaking out of places that shouldn't be leaking out of? Is it dirty? And then obviously I want to replace it. So here's new fluids and new stuff. I'm maintaining, I'm doing the things so that even if I were to use the vehicle, I know it would be in good shape. And if I were to sell the vehicle, it would have a record of maintenance. And the next guy checking the oil would see that I was staying on top of that. So if we understand how our building works that way, we can then, what's the baseline? To have a head and inspection done. Now, do I really need to do that roof replacement? And again, back to having the money. If I'm broke, I'm not going to go to the dentist anyway, right? I don't have money for the dentist. But now, until my mouth hurts so bad, and now it's a big root canal or a big dental surgery that costs way more money than had I gone to the dentist routinely for that routine maintenance that inspection, those x-rays, those cleanings, and to keep me out of that trouble. And so knowledge versus money. And, if you own a building and you're flat out broke, you're not going to call for a consultant to have them do an inspection. You just don't want to hear about it. But if you're trying to run a community that maintains really good property value, you're going to be staying on top of that. And you're also going to be saying, how can we maintain our building the best here? So reserve studies are your savings account. And we want to keep you happy and functioning there. Um, so bottom line, we're going to go through some real cases. We're going to show you befores and afters. And because the reserve study is just doing a visual saying, hey, the siding looks fine. Yep, last another 20 years. Perfect. But until somebody does a x-ray or an inspection to really see what's going on under there, then you'll be able to understand that. So, and we'll talk about how to fix it. And so anyway, we're going to jump into common symptoms. So these are on our website. If you go to our website, you'll find a page called Common Symptoms. We're looking for staining. We're looking for peeling paint. We're looking for cracks and kind of maybe bounciness of decks or roofs, sponginess. We're looking for, water coming out of these areas. And so here's some, teasers, but you'll see this on our website. And then Carolyn's going to put some things in the chat, some YouTube videos or some, kind of common symptoms there. More, why do I have moss growing in my patio and why does it seem like the water is running down the siding? Well, guess what it is? It is running down the siding and your plywood now looks like a big mess. And, why do I see these blisters with water coming out? Why do I kind of see some funny shading and staining on the siding here? Well, that's because we've got water leaks in there. So these are symptoms of ponding water. I've seen icicles come out of ledgers or gutters, but we shouldn't see icicles coming between the gutter and the roof sheeting. And cracks can matter. Here's a big crack. Here's some water staining on it. And when we pull that away, whoa, dude, we see some problems. So these are symptoms and what lurks under them. Now let's jump over to the case studies. So 1 of 18, we've got lots of these. This one is the most classic walkway kind of thing. If you've got an elevated building, you're going to have walkways, you're going to have staircases, you're going to have all sorts of things. And here we can see the beams, you can see some of the rails, even the beams on the outside, they look fine. We pulled off some siding to kind of peek around, but you can see the sealant. So who has installed the sealant over the years? And we've got a few different colors of sealant. And so we know they've kept applying and kept applying and kept applying. And actually we had finished our investigation here and it was right at the end where we literally went over and knocked on a beam to see what was going on inside. And so this is what we found. We can start on this, right-hand photo. You can see it's pressure treated beams. You can see pressure treating from the outside. You can see the knife marks. But on the inside, the pressure treating only goes so deep. The inside is totally rotted out. These beams are basically hollow. And so it's a combination of beams and posts. But here's some big support beams that come into a three-way T intersection. There's a lot of load being carried here, and there's not much left of those beams. Here's some cross sections of a post, and again, 50% of the post is gone here. Over here, it's 90% of the post. And so a real good reminder that we can look at the outside, looks fine, but you start just doing a variety of things. Why is it hollow? Why is there stains here? Why are there weird cracks? Where is the staining coming from? Why are there 5 different colors of sealant? Who's caulking stuff to death? And so we've started looking at beams and posts in a whole new way after this project. And there's actually some interesting tools that can help us with that. So let's jump over to the second one. Standing on the exterior of any typical building, this is vinyl siding, looks clean. We noticed that the panel meters had a little bit of staining around them, and we didn't see any flashings over the panels. So we thought we would see some damage around the panel. We also saw that this upstairs window was really fogged up, and there was all sorts of evidence of a lot of condensation upstairs for some reason. Then we had this funny little gutter return. This is a roof valley. Didn't look very robust. We saw some water coming down here. And, thankfully it's vinyl siding, very easy to pull off. If you have vinyl siding, it just unzips and then you can zip it back up. So if you've got vinyl, it's easy to look. So here's what we find underneath. On the second story, you can see the water coming in from that roof leak running all the way down. Here's that panel. I'll show you a couple photos of that later, but look at the second floor with its excessive steam and moisture buildup. We've got multicolored OSB water damage on the outside of it, but it's really coming through in these stud bays, if you will. You can see the clean areas are where the studs are. And what we found was they were totally missing insulation in the cavities. And there was complaints of this unit's always cold. That's why I have the heat cranked. Well, we have the heat cranked, so that's why we're condensing on the cold windows. So this whole second story wasn't insulated right. And it was, warm water vapor from the inside was traveling through the wall and condensing on the cold wall on the outside and just creating an effect that's called vapor drive. So the warm, moist air was coming through the wall and condensing and damaging this sheathing. And here's some close-ups of the meter panels. We expected to find this stuff because we didn't see flashings above these. We didn't see, routine things where we expect to see. Here's more of that corner damage. It's interesting that this building has a couple of different colors. It has a pink weather-resistant barrier and a white weather-resistant barrier. And so there have been either differing repairs or during construction, they were using different types of products and they didn't quite get them integrated well either. So, but first, look great on the outside until you open it up and then, okay. We're still on that same project, still case number 2. And here we're looking at decks because the community had reported, hey, we replaced the decks like 2 years ago and we're still leaking down into these closet spaces. And so you can see we've actually pulled the deck off now, and there's so much damage at that door threshold transition, or what's called the deck to wall transition. So if this isn't flashed correctly, all the water just flows right in behind and right down. And here's what's left of your beam or header that holds up your deck. Your studs are gone. They're supposed to be studs out here. These two remained. We got about half of one there. And you can see just tremendous amounts of water damage at the decks to storage units or deck to wall transition. All right, case number 3. Here we have an interesting kind of 60s, 70s looking little roof wall siding deck rail sort of thing with a triangle cut out, fancy at the time. But you got a lot of water running down your roof. And we have a couple of different transitions. We've got top mounted rails. We've got a funny transition where it drains off the deck into a gutter. So in this instance, we had leaks in the windows below these, as well as living area leaks from the ceiling, which is the deck above. And so you can see here's the outbound edge. We're looking at that. We have some funny ventilation holes that somebody had tried to ventilate this deck area, which needed to be done. But there's so much water coming down that no wonder it leaks through the window and around the corner and through that wall. So what we did was we opened these up in a redesign and changed the railing system, changed the deck system so we wouldn't be funneling water down into that area. So, but just oof, the decks were hammered. You can also see the chimney siding is buckling. So we had problems there. We had problems with skylights. We had all sorts of problems there. Okay, case 4, more decks, more storage closets, more chimneys. So chimney to roof, for whatever reason, chimneys are always, it's like they're disregarded. They're overlooked. And so it's wall meets roof. And then here we have roof meets deck or wall. And in the next slide, we'll kind of have another picture of that. But you can see the water damage again, in these storage closets. This guy's putting firewood in his storage closet, but whatever, it's his storage closet. And you can see the water damage just pouring all the way down from it. Here's another, example of roof, deck, wall. Looks okay. Well, it doesn't look okay. It's all scuzzy at the bottom. We've got cracks and scuzz going up the corners of the chimney. Roof looks fine, but then when you really get into it, you can see that the roofing underlayment didn't go up the chimney well, and so all the water running down the face of the chimney went right under the roofing, went into the deck transition or joint there, and really made a mess. Okay, case number 5. You've seen this one before. We've got this nice big deck prow. It kind of was a triangle, looked like the prow of a ship. Had one column on it, kind of interesting. And so that meant that the other beams that were holding this up really had to do a lot of work because we only had one support. And you can see the siding shifting, and it had tile deck. It had a tile deck surface on it, and that was crumbling a little bit and cracking. Deck was a little bouncy and spongy. You can see this look. You can see it really looks like the deck is running back against the door. And guess what? It was. So we pull off this siding, trying to figure out what's going on, and wow, the whole beam came with it. And so these metal beams and posts are what's called temporary shoring. So we, immediately recommend temporary shoring to hold up these. There's nothing holding these joists on. The beam is gone. It's disappeared. And so we're gonna support this structure underneath because this beam is sitting on this column. And then these joists, no wonder it was spongy. There was nothing left of it. And kind of some more, top views or side views. Here's the top. We have a big beam and a beam bucket. And, all of a sudden there's no support there. So really hammered. But somebody had dutifully painted it. They had painted it, they had caulked it, they were doing what they thought they needed to do. They just didn't stop and kind of say, is it right under here? Doesn't feel good. More of that. If you just had opened up the soffit a little bit, you would have been able to see the deck tile membrane leaking and damaging those things. And remember that deck in the previous photo? It looked like it was sloping down into this intersection. Well, guess what? It was. Because again, no more beam. So this really pretty dramatic water intrusion. Here's an inside corner, but below a roof to wall, it's called. So the roof intersects with the wall here, and it wasn't done right, so water is able to leak down through. In addition, the windows weren't installed right, so the windows are dumping some water on it. But the window water is really on the outside of the sheathing. The roof to wall got in behind and really made some damage to this corner framing intersection. All right, here is a classic. Why did we install? Well, we had a series of owner replacement windows. And so when you looked at the building, you could see kind of white, off-white, almond, different old metal ones. And then even some people going so far as to say, I'm going to put a super duper storm window over the top of my window because for whatever reason, I've replaced these windows and they continue to leak. So why am I continuing to get leaks in my window? Well, you're getting it from the window above. You can see the WRB is actually mislapped with that. It's called a penetration flashing. It's a bib. So it needs to be on the outside. So in this instance, their rain coat is tucked into their rain pants. So all the water that runs right through there runs right down, damages the gypsum sheathing, and gets in behind that window head. And even though this person's replaced their windows twice, and they still leak. Now we need storm windows. That'll prevent it from leaking. No, it doesn't because it's leaking kind of from the inside out. Water is able to run behind the siding before it gets to your fancy storm windows. And so you can see this is gypsum sheathing. It's supposed to look like drywall. Think of it like drywall, but it's for the exterior. So it's got a paper facing, it's got a gypsum core. This is your fire resistivity on the outside of your building. So if there's a car fire or a building next door lights on fire, it won't burn the building as fast. But it loses its fire resistivity when it becomes wet and mushy and chalky. And when it gets a lot of water on it, the paper starts dissolving and actually the gypsum even falls out too. So this fireproofing has been degraded as well. Okay, case number 6. We're looking at this and we're going, wait a second. The flashing doesn't come all the way over. We have flashing between different cladding types. So we'd expect to see that, but we'd expect it to see all the way over here. And we have a bunch of damage around in this corner, and this trim piece is just getting hammered. So, and the flashing above this belly band, again, stops right at the trim and doesn't have an upturn or a counter flash, excuse me. And so, let's pull it off and see what's under there. Sure enough, we've got water pouring down this flashing and dumping right behind it, causing problems. Um, here's the flashing that's above that belly band. It did have a little upturn on it, but it was still allowing some water in there, getting wet. Actually, your flashing is on top of the paper. So again, mislapped. It needs to be lapped correctly. Otherwise, we get water that then gets trapped here. And so another problem with this is this poly building paper. There's poly style building papers. Think of them like Tyvek. They're a woven poly or plastic. And then there's black building paper, and then there's some other kinds too. But your two most prevalent kinds are asphalt building paper or kind of a poly building paper. And this one you can see it's actually woven with pretty big strands. And so here's a better shot of the strands. It's actually strips so that you've almost got a grid going and you can almost see in between the grid. And when this gets bent around a corner, like in this instance, it folds around the corner so that grid almost opens up. And so it's one of these situations. Being in the business for 30 years, I've seen plenty of manufacturers say, wait, try my product. It's the best. And we passed some lab tests in perfect conditions. And so it's like, well, okay, let's see how it performs in the field. And in the field, we see it opening up or getting a snag, pulling the string on the sweater, and the sweater comes undone. And so you can see actually water is able to leak right through this type of building paper in this installed condition. And it's just the wrong stuff. And so it's caused a whole bunch of damage. Here we're around the corner. I was expecting kind of the damage to stop here, but I can stick my screwdriver right into, plywood and studs, and I shouldn't be able to do that. So then the water is leaking behind, it keeps running down. So it's all behind the brick. That's why we have efflorescence and staining on the outside of the brick. So this brick had to come off. It was just a disaster that could have been caught with a visual walk around going, what is that? So I can just look at that and say, you're going to have water there. So that's the visual clues, not to mention the cracks and splitting and peeling and all that stuff that's happening. But those are the visual clues that we're looking for. And then we're still on that same project and we're walking again. We're under walkways. Remember, we talked beams and posts and stairs. Well, why do we have patches and funny panels and things like that? We open that up, and of course, here's the walkways that are leaking. And again, we can stick our screwdriver right through the plywood. You can see blisters here. So these are all visual clues. So I've got blisters, I've got weird patches, I've got 3 different colors of sealant. There's probably something going on here. We should probably do a little bit of an inspection just to see what's up, and then we can fix it and keep this from becoming a gigantic issue. Okay, next one. This was a very interesting one because these are steel beams. And so this is a steel building. Here's a big wide flange steel beam. And we actually got a call from the owner saying there was an incident caught on the security cameras. And the security camera footage shows this boom, the drywall goes flying and dust is everywhere. And the building collapsed about 2 inches because you can see the corroded through steel I-beams folded. And so these just folded because the web had so much water intrusion that it just eventually gave out. And they were headed for much more disaster. So it was a wake up. But here you can see we've got shoring in place. We're investigating. We're shoring up the building, making sure it doesn't topple. But here's some of the drywall cracks and crumbles, and now the column is crooked, and there's lots of things going on in there. So just because you have a steel building doesn't mean that you don't have problems. Okay. Here we are, another hey, I see siding, I see beams. The beam kind of starts looking a little tepid, a little tired there. And as the stairwell is tying into some of the siding, I can see some rust and some staining. I also see a little bit of warping or blistering in the siding panels. And I don't see any head flashings above these horizontal trims. I don't, I'm kind of like, why don't we open up there? There we go. So we open up where the beam meets the wall, and we can see the edge of the beam is toasted. The screwdriver can poke into the framing. The black building paper is so exposed to moisture, it is literally washing away the gypsum sheathing again. The paper is peeling off, it's disintegrating. There is so much water entering this joint that your WRB is washed away, your gypsum sheathing, fireproofing is washed away, and your structural support beams are deteriorating or just crumbling from the water damage. So I think so then we kind of dig a little bit further and we can see, we even see evidence of pest infestation. And so pests are an interesting, ants or whatever they are. The scouts in the colony are looking for nice wet wood because the baby ants with no teeth can still gum the wood, and the old ants with old rotten yellow teeth can still eat. And so they set up shop at these wet, soft areas. And so then that'll bring in a few other, where do the birds or the woodpeckers start pecking on your building? It's not that the woodpeckers like stucco or trim or whatever. They like a high concentration of ants or bugs, and they're actually telling you where the water is. So maybe I'll train a flock of birds to go diagnose some of these buildings. But this is, water gets in, causes it nice to be soft and yummy and marinady. Bugs come in, then, your building just keeps falling apart. So again, same place. We're taking a screwdriver, we're poking things out. Here's, what looked good when we pulled a few things off, it just started getting really bad really fast. And this was built in the 80s. So it was 45, 50 years old already. Kind of a plaza deck. It was roofed over, but it was used as a party deck. But for some reason, it had some leaks in it and it had some bounce to it. And so we pulled off a little piece of roofing and found water totally sitting on the plywood. And then we pulled off a bigger piece, found some damaged areas of plywood, replaced those, but the roof wasn't installed right, and it was allowing water in. And so there's no bounce meter. It's just you walking around and kind of going, this doesn't feel quite right, or this feels a little soft, and it shouldn't. It's supposed to be hard plywood, structural plywood and framing, and it shouldn't bounce and wiggle. So that's part of your investigation technique is just walk around. So, but this whole deck membrane had to be removed and replaced. Okay, nice looking building. Lots of architectural features, but again, stairs, walkways, roof to walls, windows to roof. We've got lots of things going on in here. And when we pull off some of the siding, we obviously have a ton of water damage here. And so water damage corners, this is under some beams and posts that would be kind of in this area. We've got windows that aren't installed right. Um, here's the same property, and you can see the we're missing our penetration flashings around the windows, but that's kind of how it was installed way back when. But you can see water damage, gypsum sheathing, it's just crumbling off. We've got deck to walls, that are leaking. Why does the deck upstairs leak? Well, it's pouring down. So remember the storage closets were under here. Well, in this case, it's actually the living room or the windows that are there. So water's coming through the heads of the windows. Why is there water coming in? This is weird. It's your deck to wall transition. And then we can't forget about those darn chimneys again. So here's some more chimneys that meet a deck. And again, they're just all these intersections become really critical to flash and properly install your paper and get everything watertight in there. And you've got a variety of subs here. You've got a deck coating subcontractor, you've got a cider, you've got maybe a railing contractor, and in the previous photos, you've got windows. Everybody's working in this area, and they're probably all contributing to it. But here's the investigator helper holding a piece of the sheathing that he's taking off. And again, we can stick a screwdriver through it. So this framing should look bright orange, not dark and wet and with some stuff growing on it, and be mushy to the touch. So, and still, same building, more decks. Remember this deck, again, posts, pressure treated. You can see the knife marks, but the center of those posts and columns is just absolutely missing. And so we're losing all of our structure. We've got hollow posts and brackets. And from the outside, they don't look bad, but I got a little rust coming out of that nail, and I've got some other evidence that there's water leaking through, and I've got some evidence that the deck maybe is leaking. And so when you put all those together, we have a couple of fancy tools called a drillometer. We can drill through that and see if there's good resistance. So the drill bits come through the hard side, and then they go into the mushy middle and go, all the way to the other side, and you have no resistance. So then we can start saying, let's take a section of this and look at it. But very simple, easy to do, but keep your eye out for that. Okay, this is a very interesting, it's an older project. They were designing these steel trusses for a while that would be your first floor truss and then curve up and make like a walkway on the outside. And so you can see they didn't need to be that thick. They could be architectural and fancy, But they noticed that this soffit was peeling off and coming apart, and it's a masonry building, so it's stout, and it had some metal cladding on the walkways and even on the bottom. And we were seeing it fail, and we were opened that up, and this these steel joists are very they're engineered particularly for this building and this load. And then when it starts corroding and the welds start corroding, you've got bigger problems. And so we can see that um, the walkway wasn't waterproofed. It was a concrete walkway. It was allowing water in, and we're rusting out the components, the structural components of the building. So that's what caused us to look there. Okay, case number 11. This, again, why is the siding bulging so much? Now, I understand you've made the residents replace their windows, but why is the siding bulging out so hard? Well, it's the biggest hornet's nest you could ever imagine. But again, look at the back of the plywood. So the back of the plywood sheathing is rippling and stained and damaged, and there's just lots of plywood, lots of sheathing damage there. And the windows, all the retrofit windows were done. Just do your best and call it the rest. The fins were cut off. It was just squirted in, and that was expected to be a sufficient job. And each one of these windows were adding water to this siding system and causing it to leak. And so they thought they would fix their decks first. So they did their decks. This deck is 1 year old, and they put new deck boards on it. And they didn't pull the sliding glass doors and to put in a door pan, it's called. And so the door pan is under your sliding glass door. It integrates with your deck. And so water is rolling off the deck behind. You can see the WRB gets in behind, runs down the wall, floods the wall, but it also goes in under the slider and floods into the units. So here we were seeing, why does my carpet have brown staining on it? And even why is it wet when I'm wearing my socks? So you can see that stain, that water stain line. Water is just pouring right in. The brown stains come from the tack strips, or the nails in the tack strip that's designed to grab onto the edge of the carpet. And so you can see the tack strip is all rusty and even rotting. And that's what's causing this problem. So brand new decks, we just replaced them. They did it wrong. Sorry. Okay, here we are. Kind of an odd concrete stair blob poured up against the base of your siding, kind of burying the building in concrete. You can see they just didn't even bother to step it away or form it. They used the siding as a form board, and that gets water on it, and then that gets into the siding. And so here's the below edge. Here's the base of the sliding glass door below the trim. And you can see it's just shot. Again, pushing a probe through that. But when you're walking around the building, you're like, hey, siding looks good. Blue paint looks nice. Maybe I should repaint that because it's a little bit ripply. But the trained eye is saying, why is there a big blob of stairs against my siding? Why isn't there a staircase? Maybe that's separated back a little bit. That's not good. I bet you we got water trapped in here. Sure enough, we do. So, all right, now we're getting into EIFS. We don't see a lot of EIFS around as much as we used to. EIFS is an acronym that's EIFS, stands for Exterior Insulated Finished System. So think about it as foam with a stucco finish over the top of it. And so the foam allows us to put in these cool grooves and maybe stick-ons that look like coins or other accents. EIFS got a bad name in the 80s and 90s for kind of a class action lawsuit. But the problem with EIFS is it's called a barrier system, meaning there doesn't have to be WRB or building paper under the EIFS to drain out. And so it's installed as a monolithic coating and then sealed, and it's designed to keep the water out. Problem is, when that sealant fails, a little bit of water gets in. Now the water has no place to go and it's trapped. So you can look at this building and go, yeah, looks pretty nice. Um, but they had complaints of, I'm kind of having leaky windows and I don't know why. And would you please come look at our building? And so here you can see the stucco and or eaves in some places. Yeah, here's the eaves foam that's stuck to the gypsum sheathing. What you're not seeing is any building paper. There's no building paper covering the gypsum sheathing, separating the foam from the building. So the water gets in at this sealant joint and leaks in, and now it's trapped and stays in there, and it even gets all the way down into the framing and causes problems there. And so I believe there's one more shot of it. Yep, here's the plywood. Doesn't look very orange, looks pretty brown, looks pretty, actually lots of watermarks on it. And when we peel that away, you can see there's even watermarks and staining on the framing. But your gypsum is toast there. And then the further picture here, somebody's peeling away the paper facing of the gypsum. It's just delaminating and coming undone. Here's that remainder of the foam that was troweled on, stuck on, and then coated. But you can see it gets, hey, why is this crack? Well, now I've got an avenue for water to get in. Or if the window doesn't look that great, has some black junk leaking out, cracks and things like that. Seems like the sealant in the window frame itself is failing. So the window now is starting to leak into the building. And that's what happens there. So, all right, we're getting through them. Number 14. This is stone and stucco and looks really nice and fancy. But they had kind of some stains here on the bottom of their beams. And it was like, what's going on? This building is 3 years old. And I've got dark staining coming from these roof to wall intersections. I've got stains under my beams. I've got weird icicles in different places. I've got water. See, all the stone is real dark out here and light in there. So we did a couple of openings and you can see the beam damage is just, it's again, I can put a screwdriver right through it. I've got top mounted rails with bad flashing. I can see the joint at the end of the flashing in stone from the ground. I know it's not turned up. I know it's not sealed right. And so when we dig in a little bit further, getting behind the lath that sticks on the stone and or eaves, we can see the beams are shot. Any kind of papering is washed away. And so this is a stucco system. And, it's not good when I can push a screwdriver through it again. So more, again, the telltale sign was the brown tannins coming through that stucco. So we opened it up and found not much left of a beam. And we actually had some stone falling off in this instance where, why is the stone falling off and why do I got brown stains in my building? Caught by a visual inspection, but again, I can see flashing problems. I can see all sorts of other, why do I have icicles dripping off the end of the flashing where I can see into the stucco there? Why do I have funny extra sealant joints in the stucco? That's weird. And so that's why you want to walk around your building and look. Okay, this is a good one. This is, hey, we're in the middle of painting. We got called out and saying, I still have leaks in these windows below. So these were I believe these are first floor units, second floor units, third floor units. And you can see the new windows with the crosshatch versus the old windows with just a horizontal. And here why is my head of my window keep leaking? The guy above me replaced his window. Well, what he did, you can see we pulled off some siding. The window replacer guy didn't pull off any siding, but pulled out the WRB, pulled out the sheathing, or maybe it was just totally rotten, but this window sill has been leaking for many years into this system, and the new caulked in place window didn't change any of that. And so now we got to pull off the siding. We got to pull out the windows that were put in. We've got to pull off the siding that was recently painted. So again, getting ahead of the game, they were doing their best, but they should have taken a break and thought about it for a second and looked into it a little bit so they didn't have to throw this good work away. Okay, more soffits, more walkways, more decks. Do you sense the theme? Okay, so we're seeing we're seeing cracks and stains. We pull off some soffit material, and that's what's left of your sheathing and your beams. And so we've got a lot of water intrusion in there. It's peeling away the gyp sheathing soffits. There's just a lot of water leaking through this, and so um, time for a deck redesign. But we've got lots of damage in there. This isn't just recoating decks. This is replacing these beams, and so it was allowed to get to that point. Okay, this is just a routine inspection. These folks were like, "Hey, come inspect my building. I want to understand what's going on. Here's a stucco corner and some wood siding. I see some head flashing above the window. Great." And we open this up, and nothing's left of the corner. The framing is gone, the sheathing is gone, the Jip is gone. And we can see some bad flashing at the top here, which, is just outside of that photo, but not sealed, not integrated right. And so all the water, if it can just dump in at the top, it gets to run all the way down. It's trapped inside, and lots of damage will occur. Okay, last one. This project is 2 years old, and hey, my building's brand new. I don't need an inspection. Not really, do you? Okay. So inside a deck wall, here's the wall, and here's the building wall. We can see that the metal flashing kind of stopped at the outside edge of the wall. And here you can see, bumped into the siding, and they squirted some sealant on it. They didn't flash or put any membrane or sealant above the top of this and then cover it with metal. The WRB wasn't installed correctly. Here's the crazing and cracking on the OSB sheathing, and we just pushed our hand right through it. We didn't need a probe. So this OSB sheathing is your structural sheathing on the building, and it's just mush and lots of water. And again, 2 years old. And so on this side is the gypsum sheathing, lots of water damage and growth. Water is entering the top of this and can run all the way down. And here we're on the outside of the building. It's a beautiful looking building. And again, brand new. But here's your OSB sheathing, just gone. And from this horizontal cap and roof transition, and just really messed up. And again, brand new. They expected it to last 40 years. The mortgage company expected it to last 30. And so this is how they started. A couple more pictures of that. But again, common themes here: horizontal flashing caps, scuppers, little roof scuppers, through wall scuppers that aren't done right. Top penetration railings, meaning your railings are screwed directly down through your deck membrane or through the flashing, as opposed to fascia mounted, screwed on the outside. And so those contribute to leaks all the time. Here, I don't need a steel probe. I can use a plastic pen and stick it through the framing. And that's framing. That's the layer below your sheathing. So that's supposed to be a real hard beam or 2x4, etc. So we have problems. And this is brand new building, looks sharp, and toasted already. So Befores and afters. Reserve specialist is going to look at that and go, yeah, 40 more years. And that's this, it's synonymous with going to the doctor and saying, you know what, let's do some little tests. Do my blood pressure, do my, basics. Now, maybe we should talk about, for ladies, let's get into a mammogram. Let's do an MRI if what we're seeing, we can go a little bit more uh, bigger expensive tools, but we don't have to do invasive surgery like this. We don't have to pull things off, but until we have MRIs for buildings, pulling a little siding off and things like that and putting it back on and repainting it doesn't destroy the building, doesn't hurt the building. So taking time to visually walk around and assess and take notes of these little cracks and stains and things like that. And, every few years, pull off a piece of siding on this building. Next few years, pull off a piece of siding on that building. If you see anything worth chasing, then you continue. But just to kind of look, just make sure there's nothing going on there. Those are the differences between a reserve study and an investigation. And do we have one more? We've got one more. It's a good looking wall. It's at the bottom of a stairwell. And wow, look at that water all coming through because you can't run your building paper horizontally. You have to use a peel and stick there, and your metal wasn't installed right. So water is just totally running down the wall. And here we're at the deck level. We're looking at a through wall scupper. Scupper isn't done right. This whole thing is mush. So, all right. Have we scared you into denial? Or are you like, no, I don't want to see it? Okay. Well, those little leaks and little problems are going to get worse. But hopefully, we're not trying to scare you. We're just trying to say, look, a consultant or a project manager, someone who's helping you, we're not selling you a piece of product. And so we're not giving you a free roof assessment to then sell you a roof. Um, my favorite, my favorite thing was I brought my car in for tires and it was jacked up on the lift and he took the tires off and then he came and said, your brakes show wear. Would you like your brakes replaced? And I kind of laughed and I said, I'm sure my brakes show wear because I use them coming in here and I use them every time I drive. How much wear do they have left? And he kind of paused and he said, oh, they're 40% worn. And I said, yeah, great. So I've got 60% left. Yeah, okay. Kind of hung his head and turned around and left. And I was like, I don't need to replace my brakes right now. Thank you for letting me know that they have wear, but I've got more than half of my useful life left. So again, your reserve study is saying you've got a 20-year product. It's 12 years old. You should have 8 years left. Let's look at them. Let's pull a tire off and look at the brakes and say, yeah, there's nothing wrong with them. Or they've got all sorts of grooves in them. You've still got tons of pad, but they're scratched. Okay, that's why I would do a little bit of more of an investigation. And then, of course, make sure you've got a savings account to now deal with your building problems, but that's having the money to deal with it. So if you're desiring any kind of one-on-one call, you can go to learn.j2consultants.com/consultant on call, and I'd be happy to talk to you about your specific problem. Some people bring photos, some people attach photos. Hey, take a look at this. Is this a problem? Should I be worried about that? We can use that 15 minutes as a Q&A, and I can look at stuff. Some people get me on FaceTime and say, hey, let me show you what I'm talking about. Now, of course, we can't diagnose, things from a simple photo or oftentimes FaceTime, but at least we can say, okay, here's what's going on, and here's what you should do about it. So use that link, that QR code, if you don't feel like typing without your phone, or take a picture of it. Okay, how to avoid these things. Have invasive inspections done every 5 years. Now we're going to pick a number. Is it 3 years? Is it 5 years? Is it 7 years? Fine. Just get it done so that you can save looked under it. You can keep an eye on things. And if you hadn't had one done or you can't remember the last time you do it, now is the time. And it's also kind of budget season. We're wrapping up budget season, but throw an extra 5K in for a small inspection in next year's budget so that you can have some money dedicated to, we're going to understand the baseline of our building. We're going to see what's going on. We don't have to fix it right this second, but we can start putting together a plan to do that. So then, second, and then I'll back on that 5 years. Watch your state's condo act and then kind of plan accordingly. So in Washington, we have a 4 year statute of warranty. So if I want to do the inspection at year 3 or year 3.5, so I've got time there. If I wait 5 years, I've missed the timer. If I do it at 4 years in one day, I've missed the timer. And so double check your state timelines. Some have 10, some have 6, some have 4. You want to do it for new buildings. You want to do it right before then. Make sure you protect your warranty rights so to get the builder to fix them while they're still covered under warranty. So, number 2, stay on top of your maintenance guidelines. We're cleaning, we're sealing, we're painting, we're doing all the things our warranty provisions tell us to do. Deck membranes need to typically be recoated every 5 years. Sealants last, depending on the sealant, it's 7 to 10 years. So we want to be replacing and staying on top of those things as we're supposed to. And then number 3, keep an eye on your building. Walk around. All of these things. I pointed out the areas that drew us to those. Why do I have weird brown staining under that beam? Why do I have weird rust marks coming off of that? Why do my beams sound hollow? Why does my deck or roof bounce and spongy? And that's weird. We need to dig more into that. And so we've got a visual guide. I believe Carolyn's putting it in the chat. We can talk about it on the next slide. And then get your reserve studies to a healthy place. And so surprises aren't horrific and they aren't a nightmare. We've got more and more clients coming to us and revealing the fact that their reserves are about 2%. You really want your reserve balance to be around 70, 75. I disagree that it needs to be at 100, but talk to your reserve specialist about that. We don't do reserve studies. We refer you out. But get your reserve studies in a good place, in a healthy place. It's just like savings. So again, we're coming into the holiday season. I'm going to buy Christmas presents for my family. Gee, I can't believe it. Christmas came at the end of December this year. This is so weird. Come on. We can set these calendars. We can look at this stuff. We can say, look, I have to replace this roof in 8 more years. So I'm going to be setting aside money to do that. But it's very easy to ignore. And we just, as a reminder, I'm a believer that we need to be more reminded than taught. So this is your reminder. Get your reserve study out, dust it off, make sure it's healthy. Okay, and then here is the inspection guideline. Your building may not look like this, but I can guarantee your building has windows, siding, roofs, railings, decks, walkways. Maybe it has patios, maybe it has planters, maybe it has below grade parking, but you can take yourself through this and just go, hey, what's number 8? Gutters and downspouts. How do those look? Great time to look at gutters and downspouts are when it's raining. Put on your raincoat, walk around. Why is the water coming out of the gutter? It's supposed to be in the gutter. Why are the drains backing up? They're supposed to be working correctly. And so again, little tips down there, signs of damage. Do we have growth buildup or decay or cracking or bulging or, swallowing, all these things. And so you can make a little list and then you can either call a contractor to help you with that. Or you can schedule with us and we will put some schedule links in there. We can do it all for you. We understand you're busy and you work full time. So we can do what's called a wellness check. It's just walking around your building with a trained set of eyes going, remember the picture of that flashing is wrong. It's going to be leaking. Or these stains are in a beam and it's a key area and that deck looks like it's going this way and it's supposed to be going this way. And so that's just wrong. So we can do that for you. You can do this. Bottom line, it helps you in your next steps to get that going. So Q&A, we're done with the scary pictures. So we have a few questions that are sent to us throughout the month. Everybody can do that. You can send your question anytime you want. We'll probably answer it for you right away. But we wanted to bring this back to the people. Hopefully, this helps you guys. So the first question: will I need to vacate the building during invasive inspection? For visual inspection, absolutely not. We're just walking around the outside. Maybe we're walking around the inside. For an invasive inspection, in most cases, you will not need to vacate the building. The inspection team will work in specific areas and minimize disruption, but it's good to check with your inspector if any areas need to temporarily be off limits. And then depending on what we find, if we find the deck is so disintegrated, like that one photo, we're gonna block off the deck. We're gonna put up temporary shoring. We're not gonna let you use your deck, and that's all for your safety. And so, do you need to vacate the building? Nope, typically not. So, how often and when should I schedule an inspection? Oops, I'm sorry. I'm reading the wrong one. Will an invasive inspection damage my building? No. Just again, we're pulling off small areas of siding. So just select spots of siding that can be replaced and repainted. You might see that temporary opening for a while. If we open it up, find damage, we'll cover it back up right away, we'll weather tight it, and then we'll help you make a plan. Sometimes you want to call, if it's a brand new building, you want to call the builder and say, hey, come look at the damage I found. And then he can come and just peel back the plastic and go, ooh, that doesn't look good. Or, maybe we want to get 2 or 3 bids for a contractor to replace that work, and that takes a little time. So sometimes you'll see these little patches just because we don't want to fix it. Then they open it up again, then they open it up again. So those are those types of things. So how often and when should I schedule my inspection? Again, every couple of years for that visual, or if lots of leaks are happening. So invasive every 3 to 5 years, and if you haven't had one done in that time frame, now's the time. You should be able to go back and talk to the past board. You should be able to see the past meeting minutes. If you're brand new to the board, you can be, where's our information? Do we have any kind of reports on this building? Let's get a baseline. We should be able to do a small investigation and see if there's any problems. And if there's problems, then we can go to step 2, do some more openings, or kind of phase that for you. Okay, as an HOA board member with no construction experience, welcome to the rest of us. Owners are constantly challenging the costs of projects and claiming a project should cost less and provide more. Yes, we hear that. How do we provide metrics to owners showing a cost benefit analysis of the project and the reasonableness of the costs? So that's kind of a big, meaty question. I would say lots of metrics, lots of studies around the first item of, kind of common sense that everyone understands is well-maintained and good-looking buildings are worth more and sell faster. Condos are, especially if you've got a neighborhood row of complexes, condos can become a little bit of a commodity. They're 2 bedroom, 2 bath. I've got one in my building. They've got one, they've got one, they've got one, they've got one. What sets my unit apart? My community looks good, clean, well maintained, and it will sell faster and better and for more dollar. You can ask any real estate agent that. And so if it looks run down and kind of dilapidated and kind of, frumpy and buckly and things falling out of it, they're just going to go to the next 2 bedroom, 2 bath down the street. So, second thing, data from your historical records. So it's always nice to stand in front of the HOA and say, look, over the past year or even 3 years, we've spent, however much money on these leaks or these repairs. We realized over the past 3 years, I had an association that said, I'm spending 300 grand a year. I'm saying, wow, for $1 million, you can do everything right now. And instead of having these assessments, so I've got, and they said, yeah, I'm still paying on 3 assessments ago. I had the deck stack in this building, the roof in that building, the siding on that corner of that building. And, we get these 5-year assessments, and I'm still paying for 3 assessments ago. And I'm tired of it. I got assessment fatigue. And so let's package it all as one deal and give you more of a loan that can be paid off over 10 years. It's more palatable, and you're not getting fatigue there. But share some data, especially with leaks, interior leaks and interior plumbing leaks. Folks, it costs a $35,000 per plumbing leak after the, disaster cleaning guys get in and do all their emergency fans and DUs and suck it out and do all this stuff. So how many of these add up to $100,000? It's time to replace the plumbing instead of get these hits every single time because we have these problems. So historical data is really good. And then, um, for all the people challenging the cost of repair, my brother-in-law is a contractor. He can do it for less. Okay. I'm always welcome to working with new contractors. We have a list of contractors we recommend, and here's kind of the two biggest things I say to new contractors that want to be on the list is great. Give us your insurance rider that allows you to work on condominiums. And if you look at any insurance policy, it says, do you work on condominiums or not? Yes, no. And if you say yes, you're paying more. Your rates go up because they know there's a lot of claims that come out of it. And as we're seeing the damage that happens from it. So insurance companies are saying no to contractors, or the contractors have to pay more to be insured to work properly on them. And then part two, nobody wants the rookie year experience. So give me some references of this project is 13 buildings. Give me some references of other 13 building projects you've done. And most of the time it's my brother's a contractor and he puts in kitchen cabinets. And so they're just two different things, and they may do a great job, but we want to work with people who are experienced and properly insured and can do a good job for you. So those are the two big takeaways there. And then reasonableness of the costs. Go through a competitive bid process. So we're going to give you an investigation and a scope of repair. We're going to help you take that out to bid, and we're going to go to 3 experienced contractors that have recommendations and say, give us a price. And they know they're in a bid situation and they're not just calling you out of the blue wanting to replace your windows. And so we get pencil sharpened and we go through a good competitive bid process. Number 2, have a consultant or project manager involvement and overview for reasonableness. They aren't selling anything. They're keeping an eye on the project for you and making sure it's done well. Number 3, we talked about selecting good contractors to do that and have a similar track record. And then number 4, seek your other opinions. So there's the consultant's opinion. Call the reserve specialist and see what he or she has to say. Call your manager and say, is J2 making sense? The reserve study, the manager, do you see this as a fix or not? And then your HOA attorney. And so even get all those people in the same room and have them debate. They've done hundreds of projects like yours, and they can say, hey, how does this equate to the job down the street we did a few years ago? And you can listen to them talk about it, and and I'll call out say, hey, I don't think you need to do that unless you want to. And in that case, go for it. So those are metrics, or those are helping owners understand the cost benefit analysis of all that. Okay, now we get to go into the live Q&A. So that is the bonus for you attending live. 3:30 on a Tuesday is hard. And I know we're running late, but we send this out as a replay. And so you can attend and get your questions answered live here. So first question, at what point is the insurance notified to put in a claim, or is this put on the reserve study for the owners to pay with increased dues? Fantastic question. And so the the insurance company you go to state law or insurance policy law. Every state has an insurance, what do you call them? Insurance regulator, insurance administrator. No, it's somebody who's in charge of all the insurance companies. Make sure they're doing the right thing, make sure they're honoring their policy and covering their claims. And so if it's a loss that's covered by insurance, then you are filing a claim. Just like a tree hits your house. Hey, well, I know I've got insurance for that. So you file a claim. It's not a lawsuit. And so then what happens is the insurance company decides if there's coverage. And so they're looking for exact policy language, and they're also looking for exclusion language. And that reminds me of a story. And so don't let them exclude their way out of it. And here's what I meant. One of our employees lives in Asheville, North Carolina, and I was asking her about the floods and or the all that terrible hurricane, and she said, she had damage, and she was talking about her neighbors, and she was hearing the stories. She said, "Hey, you guys need to be talking to some of these people over here on the East Coast because they're getting insurance company denials because they ask, did your house flood? Yes, my house flooded. And they look and they say, oh, flooding, not covered. And I just went, are you kidding me? The flooding occurred from 10 inches of rain the first day and then 15 inches of rain during the hurricane. So we had 25 inches of rain in 48 hours on a storm event. This has nothing to do with coastal floodplains and whatever. But here's an example of how the insurance company will deny because you said flooding. So anyway, at what point is the insurance company notified to put in a claim? If you think you have coverage for hidden damage, which a lot of these photos are showing you today, in Washington, you do. And so it's hidden because the building looks great. And I pull off the siding and I find what's called hidden damage. I was obviously painting and sealing and doing all these things. And so these hidden damage claims, this is a relatively new law that makes the master building policy pay for this. And so we would say, you have hidden damage. Here's some attorneys you could call that are good at it. Go call them, see, pick one, and let us know. So I would do that as soon as possible. If it's not covered, or if they determine you don't have coverage for it, then it's saying here's our repair process. And then for the repair process, we take our reserves, and then we might have to ask for an assessment. And with that total bucket of money, then we do the fix. And so paying with increased dues is paying on a special assessment to pay for that damage. So at what point is the insurance company notified? I'd probably do it right away if you realized you had hidden damage. And then if they deny, sometimes you need an insurance or a lawyer to set them straight. So sometimes, we need some legal help there, and that's why you'd have an HOA attorney or an attorney that specialized in this insurance coverage. So, second question, how much of this damage was due to faulty work by contractors? So some of it was original. So where we have that building paper mislapped, that building paper went up on day one. And so that was a construction defect. It was put on in a reverse order. So that window is going to leak all from day one. We saw a lot of pictures of work that had been done over the years. So replacement windows that had been installed wrong, deck membranes that didn't pull off a couple of rows of siding to run their deck membrane up to properly lap in the WRB. Any kind of those roof to wall intersections where the old roof leaked and the new roof just butted back up against the siding. So anytime we do these roof to wall or deck to wall, you're gonna have to pull off some siding so that you can integrate those two systems together. And that's where, most roofers don't do siding. Most deck guys don't do siding. And so that's where you need either a general or you need a subcontractor that can do both and do them properly. Because roofers make money by selling roofing. They don't make a lot of money by dealing with siding and paint. And so that's how we run into this. How much of this damage is due to faulty work? 80%, 80, 90%. Some of it was age, some of it was bad maintenance, some of it was, but a lot of it is just incorrectly installed or two parties not communicating well to install together in the proper sequence. And that's where a general contractor oversees all that. So, third question. And let's see, we have one unit that has buckling siding. We have several contractors look at it and they said nothing wrong. Owner's concerned. Yeah. Okay. So siding's not supposed to buckle. So it's supposed to be flat. It's supposed to look good. So several contractors have looked at it and said nothing's wrong. Who knows why they said that? Maybe they don't want to work for this association. Maybe they don't do siding. Maybe they don't, whatever. Has anyone looked? Has anyone pulled off some siding and said, here's why it's buckling. No big deal. Put it back on. We're just going to have some wavy siding here. Or pull off the buckling and say, there's lots of stuff going on. You'll make it into next year's scary presentation if that's the issue. So, owner's concerned. Again, it's siding is usually common elements, so it's the association's concern. And the association needs to maintain their buildings, and so the association would pay for this. But we could come take a look at that. You could send me some photos. We could jump on a free call, and you could send me some photos, and I could understand more about the buckling. But siding's not supposed to buckle. So, okay, fourth question, fourth and final. We're running along here. Did they just try too many new things in the 80s that haven't worked out? Or is this always just down to the builders not doing it correctly? Both. And so I've been in the business long enough to be able to tell you every product manufacturer, their stuff is the best. And if you don't believe them, just ask them. And so we see it. You don't need building paper. You don't need this. My building paper is pink and blue and white and better. And so when we actually talk to a lot of these new sales reps or product reps or new products and their reps, and we say, prove it. And so give us a couple of those pieces. We literally put them in a bucket of water. My trim won't swell. Okay, great. I'll take a couple of pieces of trim and I'll submerge them. I'll put them in a bucket of water. And we'll take a picture after a couple of weeks and say either you passed or you didn't. It looks like heck. And so, we've done tests of those various kinds of building paper. We poured water on it and waited and lifted it up, and you've seen water trickle right through it. And so there's difference between lab testing and in reality testing. And you have to design for that. You have to understand that. Are your contractors installing it? Are they going to be most technically and on top of their game Monday morning at 7 a.m. And it's raining and cold and the wall is a little wet and they're kind of grumpy because it's Monday morning? Do they have to be in the optimum mental state to install your product perfectly? So you kind of have to go through those and say, is it always down to the builder not using it correctly? A lot of the time it's down to cutting corners, not doing it right, not paying attention to, I've got a busy intersection with 3 subs working there. Are they all getting along? This guy has to go first, this guy has to go second, this guy has to go third. And if they mess up that order, it's all going to fail and leak. So it's not necessarily they don't know how to do it, but the sequencing can be off too. So that's where having a contractor or project manager or consultant overseeing that process, making sure it goes together. A lot of it's corner cutting. In any kind of big boom of construction, we're going so fast, the contractors are going so fast and it's how the foreman who couldn't qualify to be a superintendent at his own company because he's not ready, but in a boom time, the contractor across the street promises him a truck and $1 an hour raise, and he goes over there and now he's a superintendent and he's just not ready. He doesn't have enough experience. And so an inexperienced superintendent screws up your project faster than bad installers. And so I'm saying all this to lots of things. There's always a free market economy. They're always telling you my flashy new thing is the best. If you don't believe me, just ask me. But the people installing things need to be trained and they need to be supervised and they need to make sure it goes back together correctly. So, all right, that's the question. So then we will go there. And we got a giveaway. I know we're running long. Thanks for staying on the show. We've got some treats for you. And so we pick a number. We've got candy, we've got pens, we've got coffee, We've got a thermos mug. These are pretty funny. These are a little hangover kit. Is your building giving you a hangover, headache? Has antacid, it has painkillers, it has all that stuff in it. It's fun. But we want you to make a cup of coffee, put it in your cup. I think we have a tape measure in there. You can walk around your building, you can check it out. So we choose a number, and then Carolyn sees how you logged in, and that's your number on the thing. And I am going to choose number 12. Number 12 is the lucky winner. So Carolyn's going to reach out to you, get your address, and send this out to you. So stay tuned. All right. So did you know we have free and paid training for boards and managers? Why do we say boards and managers? We see lots of new boards. Hey, the new transition at the beginning of the year, January is the new board, or September, or school year. It depends on if your community runs like that. We've got all new board, or the old board was asleep and the new board doesn't know what's going on. Can you help us get up to speed? We can take you through your governing documents and how to be a good board. And so you can find this. If you don't want to type, you can take your phone out and take a screenshot of that. If you do want to type, it's learn.j2consultants.com/resources, and that'll get you there. And so we've got free and paid training. Check it out. So then stream this webinar wherever you go. We're in all these places. We're now on YouTube. And of course, everybody that signed up for this gets the replay. And be sure to tune in next month. And here's my last little link to schedule a call with me. And, bottom line, give us some good reviews. If you can do us a favor and give us that 5-star review, it really gives us fuel to make more content like this. We hope this content has been valuable to you. Please share it. Please, email it out. You're going to get an email of this webinar. Share it out. It helps spread the word. We don't get paid to do this. We do it for educational purposes. So, all right. Thank you so much. Thanks for watching, and happy Halloween, everybody. Thank you.